Hello everyone, welcome to my shop. In this video I'm going to be doing a rear sway bar install on my R35 GTR. I've got a set of Eibach sway bars as well as a set of Whiteline end links. I'm going to be just doing the rear install in this video, and I'm going to go ahead and get the car up in the air and then we'll go ahead and get things started. For this job it doesn't take a lot of tools, obviously, other than jack stands and a jack or a lift. Probably want an impact wrench just to help get the wheels off and to get the sway bar itself off. If you're using the factory end links, you'll need a 14mm box end, preferably ratcheting, and ideally a thin 14mm to counter hold to get the factory end links off. If you're using the Whiteline that I used, you're going to need a 17mm to reinstall, also preferably box end ratcheting, and a 5mm Allen key plus either a 19mm or a crescent wrench. And then a 14mm socket, preferably, and probably need an extension and a ratchet just to help get the sway bar on and off. Torque wrench, and if you've got the factory hardware on your under tray, I think you need a 10 and a 12mm socket as well. I'm using some different hardware. And then you will need a 17mm crowfoot end for your torque wrench if you're going to try and torque the end links from Whiteline. So I've got the car in the air, wheels are off, under tray's off. What we're going to be doing now is I'm going to go ahead and remove the end links. Because I'm putting all new end links on here, I'm just going to remove the upper end link. There's no real reason for me to remove the lower. If you were just doing the rear sway bar and not the end links, I would just remove the lower one. This just saves me a step. For this, you're going to need a 14mm open-ended wrench, preferably a pretty thin one so that you can counter hold this nut here. And then you're going to need probably a ratcheting box end wrench up here. When you remove these little protective caps, it's really tight between here and the knuckle, and I don't think you're going to be able to get a ratchet in there, a normal ratchet and socket in there. So I'm going to go ahead and work these fasteners off. I'll work the ones off on the other side, and then we'll get to work on getting the bar off itself. So the end links put up a pretty good fight. I had to get a little creative to get the nuts loose, but they did come loose, as I said, 14mm. Last stop is going to be, you've got two bolts, or two nuts here, and two nuts up here. These are also 14mm. I'm going to go grab an impact and remove those. All the fasteners are free now. As I said, this is where having the wheels off kind of helps, because you can snake out the side. At this point, you just gotta watch the brackets. You are going to need to reuse brackets, but not the bushings. So at this point, it's just a matter of rotating the bar whatever way you need to try and get it out around the exhaust. And the bar is out. So I'm going to go get the other bar. I'll probably do a quick setup on the other bench, and just kind of make sure that the end links are about the right length. Alright, so I've got everything laid out on the bench now. You can see the original bar here, the new Eibach bar here, new end links from Whiteline are ready to go on. One of the reasons I'm making this change, car definitely, even though the car is lowered and has some aftermarket springs, there's definitely body roll. You can see it in any of the videos. Well, I guess not the videos. You can see it in some pictures and things that have been taken of my car on the track. Big benefit to these Eibachs over the factory ones, the bar is naturally stiffer. It's a thicker steel bar. But the other big thing is that it's adjustable. The factory bar is a single setting. The Eibach rear has got actually 5 settings. I'll put in the comments down at the bottom, or in the description down at the bottom, what the different holes equate to and how much stiffer they are. Starting out, I'm probably going to start out in about probably in the middle hole and just start going from there. The next step is actually going to be to install the new urethane bushings. Make sure that you use some of the supplied grease. You want to get the inside of the bushing very, very well, and then you'll want to put a little bit over the outside. Do take note, the bushing location is on the outside of the stop. on both sides. So I'm going to go ahead and grease these up and get them clicked onto the bar. They are slit. You can kind of see there that they do open up. So I'm going to go ahead and grease these up, get them on here, and then I will fish this back in on the car, and I'll pick back up when I get there. So I've got the bar, I've got the bushings on, they are greased. One quick word of advice: wear some latex gloves. The silicone grease on these things is really sticky and hard to get off your skin after you put it on. So, some latex gloves, really good for installing this. I'm going to go ahead and snake the bar in over the exhaust, kind of the same way the other one came out. Now that the bar is kind of back in place, we need to reinstall the support brackets. One note, these do have a notch in them. The notch faces the back of the vehicle. So I'm going to go ahead and grab these and get them started. Whenever you're going to tighten bolts down, don't use your impact. And you can kind of snug them up with the impact, but these are only 25 foot-pounds. So I'm going to snug them up with a torque, with just a ratchet real quick. They're not that long. I'm going to grab a torque wrench. Say torque spec is 25 foot-pounds. I'm going to crank them in, get them tightened up, and then we'll start working on the end links. All right, so I've finished torquing the 4 mount fasteners. I want to make sure that the bar moves freely. You also need to make sure that the bar, it's nice because if it hangs down, you're in good shape, but you need to make sure that it's underneath of your toe link arms back here. If this was above, you'd be in trouble and you'd have to take everything off and start all over again. So the fact that it kind of hangs down is fine. So the next step is going to be to install the end links. Probably your best bet on this is to make sure that these are all the way threaded in to start with, and then we can thread it out later. It is reverse thread, so one spins one way, one spins the other. That way this can function as an adjuster. As I said, you do need one washer on either side of the bar, so I'm going to go ahead and get these in place. I will probably go ahead and put them in the knuckle first, just so that I can move it around a little bit easier. But all right, so I've got the Whiteline end link started on up here. These do not use the same size fasteners as the factory ones, and these you need a 5mm Allen key. There's a hex in the end. That'll allow you to counter hold. The nuts are 17mm. You're going to need a ratcheting 17mm box end so that you can hold and tighten. I've got all 4 link ends snugged up, both on the knuckle and the bar. As I mentioned earlier, I am going to use the middle hole on the bar. Final torque on these is 41 foot-pounds. Unfortunately, because you have to counter hold, unless you've got a crowfoot end for your torque wrench, you're going to have to kind of take a guess. Fortunately, I do, so I'm going to go ahead and tighten all 4 of these down using my crowfoot wrench here. But as I said, 41 Newton meters with the 17mm and the 5mm Allen key. So I've got all 4 bolts torqued, or all 4 nuts torqued. It is 41 foot-pounds. I said 41 Newton meters earlier. It's 41 foot-pounds. The last step in the process before you start putting the under tray and the wheels back on, you need to set your end link length. If you have adjustable coilovers, ideally you really kind of need a set of scales and to corner balance this thing properly. But realistically, the biggest thing you're trying to make sure is that the bar clears everything, and knowing that as the suspension travels, the bar goes up, so this piece back here will go towards the back of the car. So you just need to make sure that you've got good clearance of everything there. Whiteline recommends that you set these roughly to the length of the factory ones before you do this. I did not follow those directions. I set these as collapsed as they would go when I put them in. I'm going to turn them both sides out 2 or 3 turns, just to kind of get some length to them. You don't want to turn them out too far because you need to make sure there's enough thread in here. Process for this, because they're loose, if you had tightened the jam nuts that are right here, these are loose on mine, so I can spin this and you can actually see it's moving the bar. So I'm going to turn this side 1, and then I'm going to come over and do the same thing on this side. And then I'll do a second full turn on this side and a second full turn on this side. And they should be pretty easy to move. At this point, you need to take the jam nuts and you need to snug them up at the top and the bottom on both sides. You're going to need a pretty good sized wrench. I don't know what it is off the top of my head. The jam nut is a 17. This is even larger. I think it's more like a 19. I'm just going to use a crescent wrench. Try to be as careful as you can. You want to be as snug as possible so you don't tear up this nice finish on these Whiteline end links. Fortunately, they are aluminum, so you don't have to worry about it rusting. These you just need to get them pretty good and snug. That's what will keep the length from changing while you're using it. So I'm going to go ahead, as I said, I'll hold this with a wrench, and then I'll tighten these all four, and then we'll be ready to start putting everything back together. Okay, so at this point I have tightened up all the end links. I've tightened up the jam nuts, top and bottom, both sides. I've double checked and torqued the actual mounting brackets for the sway bar. Verify that everything looks like it's going to clear, everything looks good. One thing to double check, just make sure that these end links are pretty much parallel to the bar as you're tightening down your jam nuts. You don't want them cranked all the way over, that way they've got all the movement they need. At this point, it's just a matter of putting the under tray back underneath, wheels and tires back on. I'm going to leave mine off right now because I'm going to do the front, and then I'm going to be doing a bunch of other stuff on the car. But overall, this is a very easy job. If you were doing this on jack stands and you weren't videotaping it, it's probably an hour job, maybe a little bit less. But we'll see how it works at the track. Please tune into my YouTube channel. As I said, I'm going to link the front sway bar video at the end of this video. So thanks again for tuning in.